Carrollton Junior High School. We're here on this beautiful afternoon, and we want to take you on a little tour of Carrollton. I'm Miss Holly.
And I'm Miss Hightower.
Have you ever wondered what Carrollton was like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or even 50 years ago? Well, come and take a little ride with us today because we have some interesting things to show you.
All right, welcome to Carver High School. This is where a lot of your grandparents went to school here. It was here from 1954 until 1969. From what I found out,
1969 is when students were able to actually attend Carrollton High School. Black students attended Carrollton High School for the first time. You know why it was called Carver High School?
After George Washington Carver. A lot of back then, the black schools or historically black schools were named after, famous African-American people. George Washington Carver, y'all have heard of him before. He was a famous scientist, an inventor. Was one of the ways that he was known, and so this school was named after him. And actually, as far as integration is concerned, the students started being able to integrate a little bit before '69. It was like a school choice, and we've heard that term before, even now in 2020, where the parents could choose to allow their children to go to their local school, because at Carver High School, you had students coming here from Carrollton, you had schools coming here from outside the county, Villa Rica, Temple, Bowden, Bremen, because there weren't any schools at that time for them to go to that was close enough, so they would come here.
Miss Hightower, I remember, as a matter of fact, your uncle telling a story about the parents in Villa Rica. They hired like a bus, and they would bring the students here every day. I thought that was so neat and so
And that's
cool.
Major Sylvester Hendricks, who started the ROTC program at Carrollton High School. It's my uncle, so he's told me a lot of stories about that. And then he, the last class to graduate was 1968.
In 1960, we moved in the house we still own. Our family still own right there on Gladys Hendricks Way now. But we was totally segregated. Okay, I grew up at First Baptist Church, the church right down the street from where Mount Zion is now. I went to Alabama Street Elementary School. I went to Carver High School. So that was my world. That was my world. I practiced football up there, which is now a graveyard on the other side of the street, on Pearl Street, across the street from the high school. Up there, all of those, there's a graveyard now. That used to be our softball field, baseball field, and we practiced football up there.
We are standing on the grounds of what looks like used to be the cafeteria. So it's pretty fascinating to be able to look around and see this is where the children ate. All right, so if you walk this way, Alabama Elementary School used to be right on the grounds where the water park is. We're gonna go down here. This is street right here. It's Leroy Childs.
All right, so here we are at Leroy Childs Street. Miss Hightower, can you tell me a little bit about Leroy Childs?
Mr. Leroy Childs was the first black librarian to be over West Georgia Regional Library System here in this area. He actually had his own King Street branch on King Street. We'll look at that later.
So we're standing here, we're still near Carver High School, and we're standing here at Molet Street.
We talked about Carver High School, and Molet Street is named after Mr. L.S. Molet, who was the first principal of Carver High School.
This is one of my favorite places that I have visited a couple of times. This is the grave site of Miss Georgia Price, and she was the first freed slave in Carrollton to own her own business.
And this area was whites only cemetery, and she had such a good rapport with everybody in Carrollton that they decided to allow her to be buried here.
And they actually pulled the money together and bought her this headstone.
All right, so here we are at the corner of Henry Street and Martin Luther King, and right in this area that you see here was where Royal Funeral Home was, that was owned by Mr. Krogman Mullins, and also I think co-owned by Miss Samuel Thomas. Right across the street there was the home of Dr. Samuel Thomas, which was the first black doctor in Carrollton.
All right, Miss Hightower, I know this street has a lot of meaning for you, and I'd like for you to tell us about it.
All right, this street right here is Gladys Hendricks Way, which was named after my grandmother, Gladys Jones Hendricks. And she lived on this street in that White House over there for about 60 years. So this is her home for a long time. She kept over 200 foster children in her lifetime. So that's why she's pretty significant in this area. She's helped raise a lot of kids in Carroll County. So right across here from Gladys Hendricks Way is where we talked about Mr. Leroy Childs. He actually had his library here, King Street Branch Library, right in this little empty lot right here. And then he was the assistant director of West Georgia Regional Library in this area, and then he became the director. So another thing about Mr. Leroy Childs and his wife, they had a bookmobile, and they used to go around the neighborhoods, to different neighborhoods, and take out books and read to children. Actually, they used to sit around in circles with kids next to the bookmobile and actually read to children and have them check out books.
So we're here still on Martin Luther King Jr. Street, and we're standing between two important streets. Over here is Mount Zion Boulevard, and this is Willie North Street. Miss Hightower, can you tell us a little bit about these streets?
Yes, well, Willie North Street is named after Willie North, which was one of the first black police officers here in Carrollton. And also, a lot of you know about Miss Gladys North, which is subbed for you. That's her brother-in-law, and he is still here with us. Mr. Willie North is still alive and well. All right, and then also in this lot right here, you see this little grass lot right here. This is where Mr. Jeff Long, who was a teacher at Carver High School, and he was a preacher, and he had a laundromat. He owned a laundromat right here in this lot. And we're going to talk about Jeff Long later on, but just to let you know, he encouraged his whole senior class of Carver High School to apply to West Georgia when it was still segregated.
So we just talked about Willie North Street a minute ago, and we've come on down a little bit further, and here we are at Robert Hendricks Street. Tell us a little bit about that, Ms.
Well, we talked about Willie North Street as far as him being one of the first black police officers. We're at the corner of Willie North Street and Robert Hendricks Drive, and so we're going to talk a little bit about Mr. Robert Hendricks. Robert Hendricks is dear to me too. He's my grandfather, and he was given this street as far as his namesake because he worked at People's Bank, which was on the square. It's one of the tallest buildings in Carrollton for a long time, and he worked there as a custodian for 30 years, and so he was well respected in the community. And so after he passed away, he was an Army vet for 4 years. He was in the Army for 4 years, and then after he passed away, the city decided to name the street after him.
at the center, and I don't know if you guys have ever wondered why it's called the Catherine Hardy Lavender Center, but she was an Olympic athlete. She actually won. The Olympics were in Finland. Remind me of the year, Miss Hightower.
1952.
1952.
Yes.
And she actually attended the Carroll County Training School, which existed before Carver High School.
Yep, and then they went over there and won the relay in the Olympics.
So a real celebrity.
Absolutely. And then if you look right here, there's where the sprinkler park is. It used to be a swimming pool, and that's where our black children could swim back then because the pools were segregated. So this is where a lot of our family members would go swimming. Marvin Walker Funeral Home, which is going to be on the right here. You're going to take a right at this next street here, just North Burson Avenue. All right, so we're coming up to Marvin Walker Funeral Home. All right, so Mr. Walker was president of the NAACP. Back then, he was a very well-known civil rights leader in this area.
So we're here at the WPA Center, and I bet all of you have been inside here. But the reason why we're standing here is because this is where the Carver High School basketball team played their basketball games.
All right, and then in the back of this building used to be a swimming pool, but at that time they were not welcome to swim in that pool because it was a segregated swimming pool. So of course, like we talked about before, they would go and swim over there in front of the center.
All right, we're standing here. This might be a familiar spot to you, and we've got some beautiful music coming from the First Baptist Church back there. Then you can see the courthouse, but this was actually the location of the Carroll Theater.
Yes.
Miss Hightower, tell us a little bit about the Carroll Theater.
All right, well, some of my family shared with me that this was the movie theater that everybody went to. However, African Americans had to come in from the back and go up some steps up to the balcony. And it was 15 cents to get in the movies, and you could stay there all day.
Okay, you might be wondering why we're standing here at the University of West Georgia, and actually some of you might be coming here in a couple of years. But before 1955, there were no black students that went here. And that year at Carver, Jeff Long, a teacher, he asked all the seniors to apply to West Georgia, and actually they were all rejected. Their applications were all rejected.
Yes. And then later on, in 2002, Dr. Sethner, who was over West Georgia at the time, apologized to the class of 1955 and gave all their descendants scholarships to be able to go to West Georgia.
And you know, we've been a lot of places in Carrollton today, and when I got out, I saw this sign. And this is just the word that I want to leave you guys with as you walk through life, wherever you go. Break new ground.